Hey everybody, welcome back to Church Talk. We're talking about everything involving the local church. My name is Rob, and today we have Jacob back with us from Kings
Hello.
River, the drummer at Kings River. And
That's right.
yeah, we're just going to talk church today. So,
Love it.
on the Church Talk podcast. Let's just start off just kind of diving right into it. Something that I had in my mind when inviting you on the podcast was you've done a lot of worship nights and bringing other churches into the mix.
Yep.
How do you do that? How do you grab people from other churches? How do you develop the relationships first of being able to bring people in, or do you just kind of dry reach out and see what happens?
So a little bit comes from almost chance, right? Because first you got to have the idea or passion to like want to do a worship night, right? And seeing how that's like such a big part of my identity and passion, I feel like I always want to do a worship night once a month. But yeah, I mean, if you go back years and years and years, you kind of play with the same people every Sunday and you build relationships like that, obviously. But then it's like, I never knew you all. And then God makes it happen and you kind of start coming to Kings River and then you build that relationship. And then, my friend Zacchaeus from Huntington, never knew he existed, but like someone else knew him and he comes and does something at Kings River and then you build that relationship. I've always talked about like wanting to network because I feel like there's a lot of like talented musicians like within this area, like between Charleston and Huntington, but it's kind of hard to just start doing that raw, like
Right.
just start randomly reaching out to people. But like it will happen, like somebody will know somebody. So I just have the passion to do it. And then I'll have like, and again, it's not favorites. It's just like when you've played with people and you guys have a relationship and you can just lock in, it's just so much easier. And when like their heart is legit with the Lord, it also makes it better too, because like that's what you want.
Yeah.
You don't just want the talent. So yeah, I mean, you want to have the worship night, you kind of get the team together, piano, all your vocals and things like that. And it is super fun because you play with the same crew on Sundays. So like every once in a while, it's really cool to like just play with different people.
So just having a relationship with somebody, you
Yeah.
just kind of
Somebody knows
whoever that
somebody.
somebody is, you just kind of reach out to them with a certain date, and it's like, hey, we want to do this on such a date. Can you make it? And it's just people that you just know, not like, oh, so and so is a great pianist. I've never met him before. He doesn't know me.
Yeah,
It's kind
no,
of hard to reach out to them.
Yeah, I've never asked someone that I just don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be dangerous, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know what they sound like, but
Yeah.
word of mouth. But so then you kind of get a set list together, and I listen to worship music just constantly, 24/7.
So what does that look like? Like if you're planning it, do you put the music together and give like, hey, these are the songs that we want to do, and would like to have you lead this and you lead this, and so do you orchestrate that, or do you just say, hey, this is kind of some songs that I'm thinking? What do you think? How do you put that together?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. I'll usually have, a couple that I have been like listening to in rotation that like, oh, I love this song. I love the words. I love the music to it. I'm passionate. Like I really want to do this for a congregation. I'll kind of have those like, I definitely want to do this. But whenever I go through like who's going to lead songs, first I'll normally hit them up and be like, hey, what are some songs that you're comfortable with right now that you've been doing with your congregation? And then like they'll send me a list, and then like from that list, if there's a couple that like we know and we like, and when I say we,
Right.
it's kind of like if we're having it at Kings River,
Right,
then the
right.
majority of the congregation might be Kings River. Whereas we did our Thanksgiving night at Maranatha, the majority would be Maranatha.
Right.
So I just mean we, the core team, is probably people that I've been playing with. So I'll pick from that. And but again, that comes from a relationship where like I'll have these songs I want to do and I'll throw them out to the people and they like them too. But it's just because we're in a relationship and we kind of all have the same style. So I never want to like say this is what we're doing and like the worship leaders have never done those songs. I mean, that's kind of selfish.
Yeah.
So I like to get a list from them and then kind of like pick from that list, like this fits the kind of style that I'm going for. And then it's a very specific style. I mean, I like the, you know, in the church world, there's like the first song is the fast song.
Right.
And then 2 is slightly, I'm the fourth song kind of guy, man. The whole set list, I like all song 4s. I like to just fall on our face and be super intimate with it. But, try to appease everybody.
Yeah, you kind of need that call to worship song at the
Yeah.
beginning, because not everybody is in the same place where you might be at the
Most
the
people are
moment,
late anyways.
Yeah.
They're just walking in.
That's true. That's true. So, yeah, that's like the song is just kind of gets rid of the distraction. Because,
We all know what they are. Let's just be honest. We all know what they are.
Yeah. So when you make these calls and you get things scheduled, you have some songs picked out. What's it look like when you're looking at different keys? Like, say if so and so needs the song in A, and then the next song needs to be in B flat, and so it's simple if you're doing like this one's in G, next one's in C, and they kind of can all roll together. But if the key is like totally off, do you all like try to figure out a different key, or a different person lead it in a different? How do you guys like structure that to where
So the couple worship nights
it
that
goes
like
together?
I've led, so to speak, or like birthed it or whatever? No, because I just do the drums. You know, I can't sing. I don't know like keys very well. I leave that to the professionals. So, and again, it all goes back to relationship. Like I trust these people very, very much, and like the worship culture, and I trust their opinions. And so, I'll pick the songs, but I'll definitely ask the worship leaders like, hey, what key do you want to do this in, right? Yeah. So they'll give me the key they want to do it in, and I'll have the order. I can't make up like there's some big intention behind the order every time, but I'll have the order, and I'll put it in the keys that the worship leaders want to do it in. And honestly, I've never done the order based off of keys, because, you know, the piano player, which usually is Michael, your son, is like just very talented and just good in transitions, you know. I mean, and I am D or whatever, so a lot of times if we end a song, you know, we can flow or whatever, and then whenever we get to a sitting point, it's like, hey, Michael, like, let's get to C from wherever we're at, and he'll just make it magical, and then boom, we're in C. Yeah. And I have the drum pad too, so I'll hit a C pad. Right. So we get to where we want to get to quickly. Yeah. I like to think I don't like awkward silence or anything. Yeah. And
if you have, I don't mean to sound like rude towards some, but if you have talented people on your team, now if the people on your team aren't as skilled as like what you're talking about, where you can go from one key to a different key that's not a smooth transition, and they can figure it out and make it smooth, because really talented people can do that. Mm-hmm. That's not in every church. So I think for myself, that's like one thing to where a pad or even like tracks help with that. Yeah, that's something that I've noticed at Kings River. I'm not totally against them. There's some good things for them, but me personally, I just don't.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of them. But I can see where they can be a great tool at times. For sure. And if you're at a level to where it's like, you know, I can't make that transition smoothly and make it sound good, and it's going to sound weird to people's ears, then that can be programmed in a track to where that transition sounds a lot better. So I think that's one thing that I'm in favor of for a track.
Yeah, and I've done like the worship nights where we kind of mixed teams where I didn't necessarily lead it. So the Thanksgiving service at Maranatha, I was asked to be a part of it, but I didn't kind of build the set, and maybe they did order it in as far as like flowing within the keys, but I'm not sure. But every worship night I've been a part of, it's worked out. Yeah, whether that's how they did it or not, and I've enjoyed both things equally. Whereas I kind of planned it versus I just joined. Yeah. I've enjoyed them both. I love playing with new people.
Yeah, we've had some in the past as well. I've been part of some of them where there was no practices beforehand, and it was like the practice is the sound check.
Yeah, the 2 hours before or something. Yep.
Yeah. So how does that work? I mean, I guess you have to know the skill level of the people who are coming,
Yep.
and know that, But for instance, if I do a song totally different than like, or do we want to like stick to this person's version of the song? So listen to that and kind of lead it this way.
Yep.
Or do they have like the freedom to, hey, you lead the song how you lead it, and if there's differences, we'll pick it up? Or how do you kind of structure that to where
Yeah.
different people lead different songs different ways? How's that all come together, do you think?
So normally when it comes to practice, when you have like a merging of teams, normally the practice is the day of. I know for the New Year's Eve, it was the day of. I think when I did the worship night a couple years ago, we did do one earlier in the week. And then for the Thanksgiving service, I think it was the day before. So all of them pretty much either the week of or the day of. And for the ones that I've done, it's really like, hey, this is like the tracked arrangement we're going to do. Now they can kind of like, they can lead it and flow it how they want. But like the bridge is going to be where the bridge is, the chorus is going to be where the chorus is, and this is how many times we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. Because we all know, you take a song like Worthy of It All, I mean, there's going to be 12 tracked arrangements on multi-tracks. So when we build it in Planning Center, we'll have this, Jesus Culture arrangement or our Hillsong arrangement or whatever, because that's what the band will practice. And so that's what the worship leaders will practice too. But when we're done with that song and that track goes away and they're still wanting to flow in that moment, then we totally are following them. Or I'll give out a cue or whatever. Let's repeat the chorus, bridge, or whatever. But most of the time we kind of follow the specific tracked arrangement.
Gotcha. So that kind of makes it easy to where everybody kind of knows. They can practice that part on their own and then come together. Because like say the ones that I've been a part with Kings River is, I think JD was there on that.
Okay,
that
a
day,
couple years ago.
And they were So, but they were at that time they were, I think, living like up in Parkersburg area.
Okay.
So to make the trip down to Kings River is they didn't want to do it on a, well, honestly, can't speak for them. They didn't want to do it, but I wouldn't want to make that trip
right.
multiple times for a practice.
And David, who came in for the New Year's Eve, he's from Georgia.
Yeah.
So it's not like he can come in. So we actually did, when we did Holy Forever, we did like his arrangement because he has a recording of it. So he actually sent it to me ahead of time. Like, hey, it was like lowering the BPM a couple notches and kind of like doing it a little bit differently. So, but again, we planned with that. We planned for that ahead of time. So let the band know, hey, check out his version. We're going to do it like that. My King Forever, it has 2 different Josh Baldwin versions. And so he sent out this as kind of the arrangement we're going to do. And we were used to the other one, but no big deal. You get it out ahead of time and you learn it.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, anytime Michael sees on the set list and it says Pour My Love on You, and he's like, starts to play a whole different song. It's like, no, it's a different song. There's a ton of songs out there that's named the same.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And even the same people have, like you said, there's like a few different versions with the same person. Like, what version are you going to do?
They really are different though.
Yeah. And it's crazy how, it can really mess you up if you're not on the same page.
Yeah.
You're on the same one.
When I was in Lexington, it was like one of the churches I went to right before we moved back, and they were pretty Pentecostal. They were very flowy type of worship. Loved it. They had a little cello and a violin. I'm like, man, I like this. But she was kind of like your style, where she'll send out the set list, and I would be like, hey, what version are we doing? And it's kind of like her own version. So you don't really know it until you get there. Yeah. Because I'm going in like very prepared, like structured, and I'm like playing it, but she's doing something different. I'm like, that's not how the track version was. Yeah. She was like, oh, that's okay. This is how I'm going to do it. So it's a learning curve. But if you don't have practice time, right, trying to figure that out, 2 hours before, right, definitely could be challenging.
I think that goes back to the person who's going to be leading that song. Is we kind of have to, when we're coming together with people that we're not normally with, I think we need to adjust ourselves to match what is good for the whole team and good for everybody, rather than just saying, well, I'm me, you invited me, and I'm going to just be who I am. Well, sometimes we need to like adjust ourselves a little bit
for sure,
to fit, because like you said, we had practice last night, and we introduced a new song. Who else? And
love
so
that song.
I've only heard it 2 times because, and purposefully, I want to like know how it goes, but I don't want to know like what are they doing with every little thing, because I want to be able to flow in what I'm feeling in the moment. Not so much in the moment, but just while we're practicing it, and kind of develop the way we're going to do it versus how they do. Now, if we use tracks, it'd be a little different. We would have to stick to that track, but I kind of like that ability. Like, okay, if I want to do this twice, or if I want to do it 4 times, or if I want to go back into this, it kind of gives me that flexibility to where I don't feel like in the back of my mind, like that's wrong. It's not the way they done it, because I heard it twice.
There is no right or wrong either
Every
way.
other time I've heard it, it's been like just me practicing it. And so I know for sure it's probably not the way that they tracked it, but that's on purpose.
Yeah.
And so even like with our team, like I don't want them to, I mean, they can listen to that, but it's also going to be difficult too. I think maybe I'm making it more difficult on them, to where if they're listening to that recorded version, and then we come together and it's a little bit different. It's like, okay, I'm listening and seeing 2 different things, and so I guess I can understand both.
I still would rather learn it from the first second to the last, and then come and you change it, than not know it at all. I still feel like I would feel more comfortable, because like I still at least know the framework of the song. I know the lyrics. I know like what they're singing on the chorus, what we're singing on the bridge, and you can change it however you want to change it, but the lyrics aren't necessarily going to change. Maybe what I'm playing is going to change, but yeah, I definitely rather learn it. It was funny one time, Michael had sent me a picture of he had like a click track up on his laptop sitting on the Nord.
Yeah.
And I was like, where are you playing? And I guess you guys used a click track for one song a couple weeks ago. It was like the first song. And he was like, it's just one song, but we're getting there. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, he was on keys, and was like, there was no drums in the beginning. Maybe there was a drum. I can't remember what song it was now, but it was something where it made good sense. I'm not anti-click. I don't like it in my ear after the song is gone. But if it's done right, it disappears in my ear, and then when the song comes back down, it's there again.
Again, it goes back to what we said. We need to find a very soothing click sound.
Yep.
Something not so harsh.
Right.
But if you make it super soothing and soft, I feel like it drowns out once all the people are going. It's hard to have something soft and gentle but loud.
Right. Right.
I think that might suit you better.
To me, it's like it gives me a headache after a little while. It's like it's pounding me in the back of the head or something.
Yeah.
And so I just don't like it. But I like it because it keeps everybody on time. But I would rather hear the drums. I'd rather the drums be that click for me, because of course you can get off on a click and it's really noticeable. If the click's not there, you can still get off, but as long as the drummer is the one and everybody follows him, it's not so noticeable. So it can really be a train wreck if whoever's operating the click, if they don't turn it off and flow with the team, it can be.
If that ever happens when we're running click track, I usually give us a couple seconds to figure it out. And you can know, like, okay, we're not gonna figure it out.
I've watched guys online before who's like really good, and they'll turn it off, they'll get back on, and then they turn it back on. Like, I don't know how you could.
I've wanted to do that. Yeah, it's stressful though. Like if something happens, you could stop it, and we're still going. And let's say we get to like a down bridge before it like kind of gets up. You could take the laptop and get it over to the big bridge and then start it right when you come in, but it can be sketchy.
Yeah,
because like sometimes you can get the starting point right on the bridge, and when you hit that space bar, you want it to go. But sometimes when you hit it, he'll start the countdown. So if he's like bridge 2, 3, 4, well now we're already 4 counts behind because I want him to come right in.
Right.
So should I do it a couple measures before it says the bridge? But Yeah, if I stop it, I'm probably just gonna stop it for good
Yeah.
and not try, because you might just mess it up even more, more down the road.
I definitely probably would.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're not using a click, like as a drummer, even the band, I feel like you're more tend to like speed it up more so than
Yeah.
like not play fast. And I feel like more songs are playing. This feels a little bit too fast.
That definitely happens. It happens with us. A couple weeks ago, it may have even been last week. I don't remember. There was a song. Michael was on drums, and I know we were going too fast. And yeah, it was last week. I remember it was like at the altar. It was like the very end. You may have already left because it was like at the very end of service, and pastor was talking, and when he kind of like quit talking, Michael just kind of like went into, it was almost like a double time, but a little bit faster. Like the BPM went up as well, but so did the number of times he was hit.
It happens.
And I looked over at Judah, and Judah just looked at me playing bass, and he's had a big smile on his face. Like,
the bass loves it.
Judah smiled. Like usually he's like super serious on the bass, and it sounded good, but like to me, it's like times like that, like when you want to kick something up and you want to bring it up. Of course, I guess you can always turn the click off and make a change. But like for me, it's like if I want to bring it up or even bring the tempo down at the end, we have that freedom to do that. But like you said, if you're good at it, and I don't know how you can be playing drums and have all four of your limbs moving and then click something on your computer at the same time. Like, that's asking a lot out of a drummer, I think.
Well, the goal is to not have to stop it. So.
Yeah. Something else that kind of goes right in with what we were talking about is event planning. It's like, so we were talking a moment ago about just like bringing other people in from other teams and other ministries. But if you're doing something within your own church, maybe it's not the worship ministry, it's just church in general. How do you guys, maybe you've done this in the past, maybe you haven't, I don't know, but how would you guys get people involved in whatever it is you're doing, and get people to sign up, get people to do different jobs and space people out to where they need to be? What's like your all's process of that?
I think really vision is like the biggest thing, right? Like having a clear vision and having a why you want to do it. Because it's easy to say like, I want to do a worship night just because I like to play. But James will be like, he'll challenge me and he'll be like, I want you to give me the why that you want to do it. So I feel like any church wanting to do any type of event, an event should have a clear like why we want to do it, right? And I mean, obviously Jesus should be the center of why you want to do it, or spreading the gospel. If you're doing an event outside of church, like in the streets or something, spreading the name of Jesus. So if events can be for unsaved people, like not in your church, or like you said, events can be within the church, so that event can grow and strengthen the congregation that's there, just make you guys tighter, make the church the body of Christ, walking together in one. So I mean, there's been youth events, there's been worship nights, there's been like the back to school kind of stuff. They'll do backpack giveaways and things like that. So I've personally only ever led a worship night thing, but we did a basketball game a couple years ago for to raise money for the youth and stuff, where like the students were a team, and then like the staff members and myself were on another team, and people would give money. They would basically like pay the refs to like put somebody in a wheelchair for a couple minutes, or like this person's got to sit on the bench or something. So that was really cool, and I think it's all for a good cause. I'm super pro church camp, right? And I mean, church camp impacted me a lot. So anytime there's like youth wanting to raise money or need money for to go to church camp, I'm all for that. But as far as personal experience, I've only ever done worship stuff. So I try to have a clear vision and again, relationship. I'm intentional of who I want to join for a reason. So I get that why, pray about it. And to get people there, man, social media, marketing. If your church does not have strong marketing, it's not my rules. That's
Right.
2025's rules, right? It's
Yep.
just the age we live in. You got to have a strong social media presence.
Yep.
You got to have good marketing, good posters, like, and it's just what it is. And so I feel like the better you utilize those tools that we have in front of us,
Right.
the better turnout you'll have. And again, it's not about turnout, but obviously the more people that come, the more opportunity there is to experience, the Holy Spirit in a different way. If you're already a
Right.
believer, or obviously build a relationship with a non-believer.
Yeah.
The more that
And
comes, the more
a lot of those
opportunity.
events are they're for the community.
Right.
So they're serving type events.
Yes.
So really, it kind of does go back to turnout. You want a lot of people to be there so that you can serve that community. Because if
Right.
only 5% of your community comes out, you're not really doing I don't want to say you're not doing a good service, but it's like you're not impacting the people that you wanted to impact. And it's not so much that we want something big and have our name to it. And I think that's okay to have your name attached to what's going on, because people need to know that it's you guys.
Yep.
And if there's people partnering, it's okay to have those names up there so where people know. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to reach and just be a blessing to the community. I remember years ago when we were a part of a church over in Ohio, we would do what was called Party in the Park, and we would have almost the entire church was organized in this party. We'd have the worship team. So I was the worship pastor, so I was over like the stage and what was going to be going on the stage. And it wasn't worship the whole entire time. It was maybe some people just giving away things or even nothing really happening from the stage, just some music. But then there's like people doing hot dogs and face paintings and all these different blow up type things, whatever. And it was huge. We'd have the whole park was pretty much full of people, and but our entire church was there to serve the community.
Yep.
So you had like your children's ministry that was over a section. You had your youth ministry that was over something, and every ministry of the church had people added to them that day to help with that. So if you're like, say you just attend the church and you're not involved in a specific ministry, that day you were. It was like those ministry heads were like the leaders of what was happening. Then underneath of them, we would have the volunteers that kind of like I don't say reported, but kind of got their task from those ministry heads. Worked out great because we had a lot going on, and like everybody in the entire church was in on it. I don't think there was anybody that from the church that come to it to have fun. I mean, they had fun, don't get me wrong, but they were serving people and serving the community. And sometimes at the time we think like, what's the purpose of that? Is to have something big with your name attached to it? And no, I don't think so. I think it is. It's really truly, if your heart's in the right place, which I think theirs was. I think ours were. It's just to serve the community. Just everything was free.
Yeah,
just come out, have fun on this day. And if you come to our church, awesome. If you don't, great. If you come and we witness to you and you end up going to a church and you get saved in your lifetime and we planted the seed, that's the purpose of it, is to plant those seeds and to grow the kingdom, not so much to grow the church. So we were talking a little bit off camera about the topic that everybody loves, that nobody loves, is church hurt. And you're like, I don't think there's such thing as church hurt. And I was telling you, where a guy in our church, Clark, he's saying the same exact thing. Like, the church didn't hurt you, somebody. And you said those same exact words. So kind of elaborate a little bit on that. And you say the church didn't hurt you, a person did. Kind of dive a little bit deeper on.
Yeah, and I want to start with like prefacing, like validity. Like, one, I've never been church hurt. right? So people might instantly write off, well, then he don't know what church hurt is. I don't think that's necessarily true. I've never been church hurt. I've never really even left the church as like an adult. Like obviously when I was like a little and stuff, but like I've never as an adult made a decision to leave a church. Never been church hurt. So I just want to start by saying that. So some may say I don't have any room to talk, but I would disagree, because I've had close people to me feel like they were church hurt. And so it's like, I just feel like on the surface, without that ever happened to me, like, I just feel like I have my relationship with Jesus and read the Bible enough to know that, like, the church is the body of Christ, right? So, like, whether, like, your pastor had, like, a moral failure behind the scenes, or, like, somebody did you wrong or did you dirty, or a leader, or, like, you were on a team and got hurt or something like that, like, you weren't hurt by the church. So everybody in that church that you had a good relationship with hurt you, basically, is what you're saying. So I just don't, I feel like people just throw the term out like, I got church hurt. No, you were hurt by that person.
Yeah.
You were hurt by that pastor. Yeah. And I just feel like I wish people would realize that more, because I just feel like the church in general gets a bad rap for everything.
Right.
It's easy to just spew it on the church. And there's actually two groups of people. There's people who say they were church hurt, and now they actually no longer have a relationship with Jesus, or like they're not Christians because they were church hurt.
Right.
And then there's like people, they just left the church and they're church hurt, but they still believe in Jesus. So
yeah, that's something that we were talking about like Wednesday evening. We had the same discussion, and so we asked the question, like, well, why is it different at church? And the perfect answer was because it's spiritual. We have an enemy that is after us that does not, I mean, when we come together as the body of Christ, as the local church, that's biblical. That the gathering of the saints, the Bible tells us not to forsake the gathering together of the saints. So, it's a biblical thing to have church. And so we're encouraged, we're equipped, and the enemy does not want us to be equipped. And so why wouldn't he fight us on that? So if we get hurt, and if he can, and I think that the enemy will twist things and make people feel like it's the church that done it. And we had a couple people was like, well, when the pastor and the not only the pastor but the church votes you out and tells you to leave, and that church told you, like, well, that was the local church. And I think sometimes we, as Chris likes to say a lot of times, the capital C church and the lowercase c church, which that's totally right. Capital C church being the body of Christ, or the lowercase is the local church. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the local church filled with people will do some stupid things, or they will do some mean things.
100%.
And so when you look at that group of people that maybe collectively they did hurt you, I can understand where somebody would say, I was hurt by the church, but no, you were hurt by that church, that body of believers, which is people, not the church. And I think we have to come to that understanding. It's like, yeah, maybe that body of believers did do something legit and hurt me. But like you said, we have to know that it's the people that done it, not the Lord, and not his church, his body.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like the people, like, I'm not saying that you weren't church hurt.
Right.
By me saying, like, I don't like that you're saying you're church hurt, I'm not discrediting that something did not happen to you wrong that should not have happened. Yeah. I'm just saying the phrasing and lumping the church into your hurt.
Right. I agree.
Not a huge fan of that. I'm not validating what happened to you, because it's real, and people in the church are humans, and we're not as obviously perfect as Jesus, and like we're gonna make mistakes and stuff. Yep. But like I want to address like each party, right? So there's the first party who their church hurt, they got hurt by the church, so like they're not saved anymore, they don't believe in Jesus. The problem is was why are you putting so much faith in like that pastor?
Right.
Like every word he speaks, you're on it. You know what I mean? Like you're following everything he says. And then when you learn that he's a human being
Yeah.
and he's going to make a mistake or he's going to hurt you, now you're lumping Jesus into his mistakes as if like, oh, well, I guess Jesus isn't perfect too. Whereas you need to stop putting so much of your faith and energy into those people and put that into the scriptures and put that into Jesus. Because if you're reading your scriptures and you're walking with Jesus, you're going to know the difference and that they're making a mistake and the Lord's not making a mistake.
It's like something that Jennifer said the other day. She's like, that's a demonic lie, that when somebody fails or somebody does something to you, especially like a church leader or a pastor, they hurt you. And so then therefore you think that because they said that, that's what God thinks of you. And so people draw back. I don't want anything to do with the church. I don't want anything to do with God, because the person that's supposed to be representing the Lord to me has said this and has hurt me. So they run away. And that's a lie from the enemy, that that's not how God sees you. That's a person's failure that you're witnessing.
And what does that person's opinion have to do with you and the Lord?
Right.
Like you should have your own relation. Like anybody in the church, in the Lower Sea Church, could hurt me to this day. I mean, people close to me could hurt me, and I'm not going to lose my salvation in the Lord because they hurt me, or I'm not going to leave and say I got church hurt. I'll address it with that person.
Yep. And that's biblical.
Because
that's
that
like
person
the
hurt
biblical
me.
way to do it is go right to them. Be like, hey, you said such and such, or whatever the case is, you bring it up, and if it gets fixed, awesome. If it doesn't get fixed, it's off of you now. You've done your part, and you've given it back to them, basically.
I was listening to Philip Anthony Mitchell. It's the pastor in Atlanta at 2019 Church that I've really, really enjoyed listening to. And he literally just said, like, y'all need to stop, like, listening to everything I say. Like, go home and read the scriptures.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm telling you, hey, this is what I'm preaching on today, like, yeah, you can listen to me, but, like, stop listening to every single thing and believing it just because I say it. Like, go home and read the Bible for yourself.
Yep. Let me influence you. Don't make all your decisions based upon what I say, but let me influence you to go look it up and read it for yourself and dive in. Yeah, that's good.
I just feel like I have a family member, like, and they are not, like, they haven't been specific on why, but I feel like they used to walk with the Lord, and now they're like super, super, super anti. And it's like, I don't know why. No one knows why. But I feel like it has to be something along the lines of, like, maybe they got hurt by, like, another Christian or by the church, and now they're not saved. But it's just like, again, I would say to you, what does that person have to do with your personal relationship with Jesus? I don't get it. There's nothing they could say that would make me, oh, you know what, that does make sense. Because we are not as strong as Jesus. We're not perfect. We obviously align ourselves with him and want to be as much like him as we can, but we're going to hurt you. We're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes.
Right.
Where's the grace, man? Like, you got church hurt and stuff, but, like, to straight up turn your back on that, where's the grace for those people?
I think that's kind of a key to it, is they don't have grace for other people. They don't forgive others. And because of the unforgiveness in their heart, it pulls them away from the Lord, rather than, the Lord is always there, like open, saying, come to me. I'm going to help you get rid of this unforgiveness in your heart, because the Bible clearly says if we don't forgive others, there's no forgiveness for us.
Right.
And he wants to help us get through that unforgiveness, because he doesn't want us to live in that. But when we don't get rid of it, when we don't forgive others, and it draws us away, then it's like it opens the door to a lot of different thoughts, different thought processes and patterns and different lies that we can believe, and we can walk down a whole other path because of something little that just drew us away from the Lord. And I think that, like you're saying, that none of that somebody ever says to you should affect your walk with the Lord. But it does. It affects people. And I think that's where...
It's because they don't have a firm foundation.
Right.
Like they don't have a solid building block. Right? I mean, I'm not as well versed on just ripping scriptures out as I like to be, but the parable of how it starts on the sand and the shaky and the rock and the firm foundation, and it's like it's just to me it's like it's not fair to Jesus, right? Not that he needs that, but it's just like it frustrates me because it's like you're not giving Jesus a fair shot at this. You're writing him off because of a human being's mistake. It's like, well, that's not fair.
Right. And unfortunately, it's our culture today that we tend to believe everything that we hear and see. It's like, it's on Facebook, so it's real.
Yeah.
It's on the news. The news anchor said this, so it's real. And even now, and we won't get into political stuff, but even now, maybe just a hair, but it's like everything coming out right now is, we're finding out that everything that my thoughts, everything I've ever been told my entire life from any media source has probably been a lie. So it's like, so now when I hear something on the news, I don't believe it. Like they say something is good for you, and then they find out, no, that's not good for you. Mm-hmm. This certain thing is not good for you. Then we find out, oh yeah, that thing will help your body be healthy. It's like everything I've ever been told by doctors, media, whatever, has been pushed, has not been truthful.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's the culture that we live in, that we believe what we're told. We believe if it's on TV, we believe it. If it's on the news, we believe it. If a pastor says it, and we believe that's what the Lord is saying. And instead of doing our own research, diving into it ourselves, and knowing the voice of the Lord ourselves, because there's a lot of pastors that are wrong.
100%.
They get up and they preach, and sometimes they have a good heart and they're just incorrect in their belief. Sometimes they just don't present it well, and it's taken incorrectly. Or sometimes they're a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they sound really good, they look really good, and they're just leading you down a wrong path. And we, as the gullible sheep, believe everything that we're told, and because we've been raised in this culture to believe what somebody on a screen tells us.
It's because you're not sound in the Bible.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like non-believers. They put everything into the news. And then believers, they'll put everything into what the pastor says. And I've just never been that type, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to that, but I've never been like the follower type where like I get so connected to a pastor or like so connected to like, again, like a Christian's podcast, or like, oh, I just love this guy, everything he says. I've just not been that way, I like the style of someone's preaching, but like I want to get my own opinions like from the Bible.
Right.
So, that's kind of what we're supposed to do. And like, I had a recent conversation with, a family member, same person who I'm trying to figure out, what happened there. They wanted to talk to me. They hit you with can we talk about, I want to argue? I'm like, okay, this might, yes, go ahead. Let me prepare myself, but I want to argue. That's why I use LOLs. LOL. I'm not arguing. But, they came out at me with some political questions. And I'm not like a political guy. I'm not like intelligent about politics. I've not studied it. You know what I mean? So I basically was like, who'd I vote for? And I didn't even tell them. They were like, I already know who it was. I can, and they were like just wondering why somebody who called themselves a Christian could vote that way. And again, I'm trying to turn it more into a Jesus conversation and more so less political, because like I care more about reaching her that way. It was a long text conversation, and some people are really lost, but I was just like, I made my decision based on which candidate closely, right? Not 100%, but closely represents and cares about my Christian values.
Right.
Not that person is like the best Christian I've ever seen. He's 100% perfect, anything like that. But he best closely represents and cares about my Christian beliefs.
Right.
And I'm exercising my right as an American to vote.
Right.
And it attacked it. I'm just like, you sure we're not arguing here? It seems like you're arguing. But people, it's just an age where people want to use anything political or news-wise to attack the church or attack Jesus. And I'm like, if you're a non-believer, why does it even matter?
Right.
That what way I voted based off of my Christian belief. If you don't believe in God, what's it to you?
Right.
Why does it matter what I do?
Right.
But I'm working on that relationship, and I would love to kind of know what happened there. But it's on the topic of church hurt because I feel like it might be church hurt, or it could totally not be. I just don't know. I just feel like that's probably one of the top 3 most common reasons someone is a non-believer. I would probably throw that in there.
Yeah.
Is being hurt by the church or like another Christian, and to an extent, I don't blame them, because I also feel like one of the biggest reasons people don't believe in Jesus is because of other Christians, like just being hypocrites,
Right.
and being bad examples. And I got to agree with him on that. I mean, I got to call us out as Christians. Like, I've been there.
Right.
I look back in some of my relationships, and I'm like, I always say pre-Christ before I like really followed. I'm like, man, I feel responsible sometimes of people I know, like they're living like that or acting like that because they saw me do it. I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
But obviously I wasn't mature then. I made mistakes, and I wish I could go back. But I've been there, so it's like I can call us out because I've been there. And so I do feel like one of the biggest reasons people are not believers is because there's so many just shallow Christians.
Yeah.
And we say one thing, but we don't live how Jesus told us to live.
And that goes right back to you. We're all watching each other, and then we base opinions off of people rather than basing our opinion off of either the truth of the scripture or our relationship with the Lord. Because sometimes you can get in trouble when you want to compare like the relationship to the Lord and what he speaks to me personally versus what the Bible says. And people want to like look at, well, if there's just as much validity to what he tells you right now, why do you need the Bible? Or then, well, the Lord doesn't speak to us in the same way that he used to. We only are spoken through the word, the written word, and he doesn't speak to us anymore. I'm like, I don't believe either of those. I believe that the Lord does speak to us today, but he also speaks to us through his word. And
yeah, if you say the Lord told you this and that's not in the Bible, you ain't talking to the Lord.
Right.
It's
It's not going to contradict
Yeah.
what the Bible says. But if it's like the Lord told me, we have to watch, like people love to say the Lord told me.
I don't think I've said that phrase once in my life. I'm not confident enough to say that yet in my walk.
It's like, did the Lord really tell you that? Or
it's a dangerous game.
is it impressed upon your spirit? It's like, this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I would say that instead.
I'm feeling that like the Lord's wanting me to do this.
Yeah.
That's better than the Lord told me.
Yeah.
The Lord told me, is like, it's a solid.
Jesus said, man, you better be right.
From the Lord. And the question is like, did you really? It gets dangerous when it's like, the Lord told me this, because what if it's like, just say something like, buying a house or buying a car or some decision that's not really super important, but it is important.
Yeah, it's not life or death.
Like critical to your salvation
Heaven
or nothing
or
like that.
hell.
But it's a big decision to buy a house or where you're going to live.
Job change.
Yeah, and you're not going to find any of that in the Bible, but it's an important decision.
True.
And the Lord cares about that decision. He knows the future, and I think he will tell us, like, no, don't buy that vehicle because he knows it's a lemon. But yet we're so excited that we want that new shiny thing or whatever. Because I don't think he cares what we drive as long as we're making good decisions. And I think he does want us to consult him. Like, Lord, what you know the future.
I got a perfect thing for this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is great because I feel like I've had a lot of those decisions in my life where it's like, it's not heaven or hell. It's not like
Right.
a morally good or bad decision. It's like, should I move here? Should I not? Should I take this job? Should I not? Like physical things. Right.
Right.
And I recently told James this, and I'm like, I struggled for a long time feeling like I want to make the right decision. Whereas now I feel like, again, not like the Lord told me this, but like I feel in my spirit, I kind of understand how to make those decisions now. Cause I told him, you have option A and you have option B, and I could be wrong. So, hey, there's a very experienced Bible believing man of God out there who wants to correct me. I'm open to that. But again, I say things because I feel like this could be right. There's an option A, there's an option B. I don't feel like Jesus has a right and wrong path to take when it comes to those types of decisions. It's not like if I choose path A, I was wrong and I'm not going to be blessed in this decision. I choose B,
Right.
yay, you got it right. You're going to be blessed now. If you're seeking God's will in either option, and because it's about the intent of your heart. If I'm intentionally trying to make the right decision, I feel like whatever path you take, if you have the right intentions, the Lord will lead you and guide you through that. And if it ends up, if you make that decision and like it didn't so happen to be God's best will for you, but you sought him in that, it's not like you're not going to be like not blessed or like your world's going to start falling apart. He'll work you out of that situation. But I feel like as Christians, yeah, we may look into that too much and stress ourselves out too much. Like, I want to make the right decision. Like, pray about it with the Lord. God gave us a brain, people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You can have your pros and cons.
Yep.
That's not against the Lord. Make your decision, with the best evidence that you can. And if you have the right intention in that, I just feel like the Lord will work it out, whatever path you take.
Right.
And I used to be like struggling with that. Like, I want to make the right decision.
Yeah.
It's not morally right or wrong, and it's not against scripture. If it's just physical things like that, I just don't necessarily think there's a right and wrong option there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really, it goes back to that depends too. It kind of, some things it really doesn't, like you said, it really doesn't matter. Then other things like, and I don't mean to get personal, but it goes right along that. Like, where do we go to church? Like, do I take this job that is offered to me? It's a better job, but it's 300 miles away. And, I'm involved in my local church and ministry, and I'm doing things there, and I don't feel like I'm supposed to leave, but I'm going to take this job anyway. And that's something I listened to Jensen Franklin talk about, another pastor that I listened to down in Georgia. That's why when you mentioned Georgia, I'm like, is that him? I remember he was preaching, he was like, never move for money. You move when the Lord tells you to move. So that's been one of those things. It's like, I always want to ask the Lord, like, what is the right way? And like you said, sometimes it really doesn't matter. It's not going to affect like where you're at or whatever. But like, what do we do in ministry? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go?
Yeah.
What's best for my family? And I think some of those things, that's the things that the Lord will speak to us on, and not just leave it to, if we're really listening to him anyway, I think he'll call us to a place. He'll call us to a place to where we're going to be used, but yet at the same time, we're going to be ministered to. And because that's what church is. Church is about being together and being lifted up and being equipped But also, if you can be used to equip somebody else, and then somebody else can be used to equip you, and it's that gathering together of the body of Christ. It's what it's supposed to be. And so, yeah, I mean, that's
I mean, I've heard all the like the cheesy phrases and in my years at church where it's like you don't want to be in a position where you give, but you're not getting nothing.
right.
But it's just church talk, right? The name of the podcast is just it's so interesting because it's just there's so many layers to just so many topics, and sometimes I just think like, man, what does Jesus like really think about all this stuff? At the end, like, what if we just all got it wrong?
Yeah.
But it's like we were trying, trying. And, church will just forever be just an interesting topic. I mean, people have all different things that they're looking for in a church. I mean, why do you go to this church? Why did you leave this church? What do you want? What do you not want? And just at the end of the day, we just want Jesus. But it's like, yeah, I understand the argument of like, well, I'm not getting fed or something. But it's like, I just feel like there's two sides to every issue because it's like, okay, but I also believe in like feeding myself as an individual. Like I'm at home, if I'm watching videos or listening on Spotify and if I'm doing devotions and like if I'm getting my meat and potatoes at home and I'm confident in my walk with the Lord, if I may not be getting that level at church, but there's some other pros, then like, I mean, that can be okay for you.
Yeah.
But like everyone's different, and it's fun. It's fun. I find sometimes it's funny.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit ago about just the term being fed, how that terminology I hate it, but I can understand it too, because if I can relate that to like you always feed yourself at home, but there are times when you go out to eat, and at that point you're served. And so what if we relate going to church as going, let's go out to eat together, and we go, you name whatever restaurant you like. And we go there and we sit down and they bring our plate and there's like nothing on it. And they go through all the motions and all the options, and then, cause I've been a person that says, well, you're supposed to feed yourself, but if we're preparing a spiritual meal for the people to partake, and then we go through the motions and it looks great and it's like fine dining, and they bring out an empty plate or a plate with this little tiny piece of whatever on it that tastes really good, but it doesn't fill you.
Yeah.
It leaves you hungry. It's like, can we relate that? Is that what some people mean? I won't say everybody, because I think people will take the I'm not being fed just as an excuse to leave a ministry.
Easy. It's an easy one.
But I think there's an element of truth to that. It's like if somebody's not being spiritually fed, if what is being presented to them tastes really good, but it's leaving them hungry, and then they have to go home and eat a meal that they should have eaten when they were out. It's like, I paid for that meal, but I didn't get anything out of it. So I can understand that a little bit, but I also don't want to take it too far the other way as well, because like say it's just in
moderation.
Yeah. Yeah. So
take context in moderation.
Right.
It's like, again, it's like, oh, cheesy, but it's like, I just want to know what Jesus thinks about it. It makes everything so much easier. It's like, did he specifically preach on this in the Bible? Like feeding yourself at home versus, feeding yourself at church. Like, is the Lord totally okay with you feeding yourself at home and going to church? Does the Lord think our only purpose in going to church is to receive a good message? Or is it all these other things that are also good? Yeah. Worship, community, friendships, just like, what's more important? Does the Lord have a priority list?
Right. And see, I've told our worship team this a lot, and I view the worship ministry different than every other ministry in the church. Partially maybe because I'm a worship pastor, but also because I think it's true, is that every other ministry in the church, we are ministering to people. We are sharing the love of God. We're sharing the word of God. We're teaching people for the Lord. But worship is the one ministry we come together as the whole entire body to minister to Jesus, minister to the Lord. That's the one ministry. It's like it's for him, to him, about him. Now, there's elements of it where you can minister to people through music. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that or we don't do that. But that's the one that's like, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we come together, and I tell our congregation this too, I'm like, this music is not for you. The what's happening right now isn't for you. It's for you to join with us, and we can all give worship, give unto the Lord in this moment. And so sometimes when we look at like the music aspect of church, it's like, what do I like? And I get that, because I wouldn't want to go to a church to where I don't like what the music sounds like, because it would be difficult for me to give to the Lord in that, because I'd be struggling to be like, I don't really like the sound. Like, let's just say country music. I don't like country music at all.
Hating on the country.
And if I would, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, as far as like what it sounds like, I don't like that style. So if I would go to a church and they're playing a country style music, should I be able to worship the Lord in that? Yes. But would I want to stay there and let that be the place that I would, want to be involved in? If the Lord told me, like, there we go with that, told me again. But if he put in my spirit, like, I want you to go there, I want you to be used there, I think I would definitely endure it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't enjoy it. And it would be difficult for me to join in worship in a sound that I don't really like.
And is that an us problem?
I think so.
It's just like, again, I asked the Lord, like, are we wrong for feeling that way?
Yeah.
I mean, we can have good intentions about it, but it's just like,
Right.
I don't want to go here because I don't like the worship.
Right.
Does Jesus support that phrase? I don't know. I mean,
right.
I'm not making that decision with malicious intent.
Right.
I think every human has a preference, and like, I worship better because this other church's music sounds better. I mean, it doesn't feel like that's probably what Jesus agrees with.
Right.
So, but that just goes back to your discernment, I mean.
And I think some of it too is like, if he's called you to a certain place, then maybe you're the one that's supposed to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
If it's lacking in an area and you have the ability to make it better. And sometimes maybe we're in the wrong place. Maybe sometimes the Lord is drawing us somewhere different from where we're not. And we want to be here because of, you name whatever reason. And we find ourselves like critical of everything. And it's not because we want to be critical, but we find ourselves like critiquing every little thing that happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's because maybe we're not in the place the Lord wants us to be. And it's like we're finding everything wrong with everything. And, I will say this too, it's okay to change churches. Sometimes, and I've been the same way myself, is like, I want to be dependable. I want to be that member that if something's going on, I want to be there to support the church. I want to help with whatever. And I want people to know that, hey, when the church doors are open for a service, we're going to be there, not because we want to be seen or whatever, but we want to be a part. We want to come. We want to invest in the church, and we want to be faithful. And sometimes we can do that to the detriment of our own selves. Like, I'm so faithful to this body that I'm not being faithful where the Lord's called me to be. Mm-hmm. And it's like, those are difficult things because it involves our emotions. It's like, I love this place, but I feel the Lord's drawing me somewhere else. And sometimes, like in our case, with the first place that we left, we didn't know where we were going to end up. We kind of had an idea,
Yeah.
but we didn't know. We'd never been there before. We knew one guy. We knew the worship leader, and so we walked in on a Wednesday night, and Jamie come up to us like, "Hey," and I didn't even know if he would recognize us or not, because he was from Cincinnati. We were in Gallipolis, and we'd seen him a couple times, and I had just seen that he was in Hurricane, and about that time was when we were the end of our season was coming up at our church, and we had no clue. We didn't have a idea where we were going to go, but we knew that the Lord was calling us somewhere else. So we found everything in that church. It's like I could pick out things that this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. Were they wrong? Maybe not. Maybe it was me because I was in the wrong place. And so sometimes we face that, and it's okay. It's okay to, and what I can't stand though is like when somebody leaves the church, and I love this about like Kings River and us, is we left Kings River not because there was a problem, but we left because we were called, somewhere else.
Yep.
Now, not saying that, if that wouldn't have happened, would we still be there? Would we? I don't know. I don't know but I know during that short season of time, it's like where the Lord had us for a season, and then we were called to a different ministry. Now, I do know that if we were called somewhere and I didn't hear the calling and didn't go, I would find everything wrong with the church that I could possibly find, because I wouldn't be happy because I'm not fulfilling the calling God has on my life. And sometimes that's where our disdain, I guess, or our critiquing of a church will come from. It's like I'm not being fulfilled in the calling God has in my life, so I'm not happy. And
I feel like it's a tough balance between that and like you just complain a lot about everything.
Right. That's true. That's true, because there are people that's
I mean, I feel
exactly
like I'm close to that. I just complain about a lot of things, and like the things that you complain about, it's just like, how much does that really matter in the grand scheme of things? But it's like the older I get and the farther along we go, it's like I'm almost in the mindset of like, we probably are all just doing this wrong, probably, but
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't mean to. I don't know that we are. It's like there's those who do wrong and they know it, and then there's those who are doing wrong and they don't know any better.
Right.
And I feel like that's probably the majority of us, but it's
Right.
just like, I just care like what Jesus thinks about all of this and the church and our opinions and our preferences. And I just try to align it. I just try to do what I feel like is right.
Right.
And that's all we can do.
Right.
That's the Holy Spirit. And the closer you are with Jesus and you're walking with him, the easier that's going to be.
Right. And that brings us right to like one of our other subjects is, are mistakes allowed in ministry? And we said this a little bit ago, like, of course.
Yeah.
And it's something we need to be mindful of. Like, I mean, not to say it's okay for somebody to make a mistake or to somebody to, technically like fall from grace or whatever. But what do we do as the people in the church when something like that happens? Like you said earlier, they're people.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we respond as just people in the church when our pastor does something that maybe we don't like? Maybe it is sinful. Maybe it's just whatever. Or somebody on the stage or on the platform, someone in leadership, they mess up and it's a public sin. How are we supposed to respond as Christian people under their leadership?
Well, I think you forgive those as you're expected to be forgiven, and you show grace. But I think there's a balance with anything, right? I mean, there's like the uber grace and forgiveness crowd where it's like, it almost seems like it doesn't matter, but it does. But then there's the crowd like, they ain't giving you nothing.
Yeah.
They're running you out the church instantly. So
Yeah.
I think you give grace and you obviously offer forgiveness and stuff, but there should definitely be coaching. You know, there should be coaching in there. There should be discipleship in there. There should be growth in there, because if there's not, and there's just like grace and forgiveness so quickly without teaching, then I mean, what stops them from like doing it again and again and again? Because they'll just forgive me, and that's the same way people do Jesus.
Yep.
I'll just I'll pray for forgiveness. I'll just ask for forgiveness. But if you're not working on progressing and learning and truly repenting, then there's a problem there. So I think the church needs to have good leadership for sure, in place to address those mistakes. And again, there's smaller mistakes, and then there's larger scale sinful mistakes. And to act like we've never made a mistake would be a mistake.
Right.
I mean, I've been in worship ministry for like since 2012. So I mean, this would be 13 years, and I'm very confident that I'm sure I've made mistakes and stuff. Now, maybe not as visibly as someone who stands on a platform and preaches or in a leadership role. I mean, but I'm sure like I've unintentionally hurt people's feelings, or like I've definitely been angry at practice. I've definitely been snappy at practice, or like I've had a bad attitude at practice because something doesn't go your way, and that's a mistake. Yeah. And so sometimes you need to be called out on it.
I think a lot of musicians are that way because we're kind of temperamental.
Yeah.
We're different type of people.
We're picky, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like larger mistakes in leadership, I think that you just got to have a good team around you, and people who will offer grace and forgiveness genuinely, and tell you the truth in love, but then also have that like teaching and discipleship in place is definitely like very important.
Yeah. It's been good, man. It's been a good conversation. So yeah, we'll just kind of end it right there, and let me know what you guys think. Y'all want to see more of Jacob on the podcast? We've been talking a little bit about getting together a little bit more often, so you guys may see a little bit more of him. And say if it's the type of content you like, make sure that you click the like button, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you'll be notified when I upload new videos, and we'll see you guys next time on Church Talk. God bless.
By the way, Rob dropped that I was at the bridge.
I'm going to put that in there.